All right. Hello, and thank you everyone for joining us today for this very special webinar. We have covering key Oracle Database 23C features that our special guests have decided to highlight for you today. My name is Monica Lee, and I am the Director of Operations and Marketing for Viscosity North America, where our mission is to enable business transformation at a time when companies must change to survive. We are a full Oracle stack consulting firm with core expertise in Oracle database, including RAC, Oracle Apex, near zero downtime migrations, and performance tuning, high availability. We've also got decades of experience with infrastructure, including engineered systems. And we offer project-based services as well as managed services and training. Currently, we host webinars and live virtual classes through orapub.com. Couple of our panelists today, we've got Maria Colgan, Oracle Corporation, Distinguished Product Manager. Charles Kim, who's an Oracle ACE Director and President of Viscosity. Troy Ligon, who's an Oracle ACE Pro, Director of Enterprise Architecture. Sorry, I don't have your company on here, at Incomm. Rich Niemiec, who's also an Oracle ACE Director, and he's the Chief Innovation Officer of Viscosity. And Jeff Smith, also from Oracle and also a Distinguished Product Manager. Welcome, welcome. A little bit about what I talked about earlier, just a little visual. I won't go over it again, but these are Viscosity's 3 pillars and delivery models across the bottom. And today's webinar is super special, not only because of our awesome panelists, but we're sponsored by these regional user groups. Hopefully one is near you. And with that, I'm going to pass this over to Maria, and we're going to start the show.
Thanks, Monica. Because we're focusing on 23C today, which is the new version of the Oracle database that should be coming out later this year, I'm going to start with the safe harbor so that everybody knows that what we're talking about today is pre-production. It's not released yet, and you can't hold anything we say about the new release against us in case it may not be there, or the feature or functionality may not be there when it's actually released. So what are we talking about? As I said, Oracle Database 23C is our topic of today. This is the new upcoming release of the Oracle database. And it has a code name internally as App Simple. And the reason for that is that the primary focus of 23C is to make it as easy as possible to both develop and run data-driven applications on Oracle databases. So 23C is currently in beta. You can join the beta program by either scanning the QR code you see there or following the tiny URL to be able to apply to participate in the beta program and test out any of the new capabilities that we are going to show you today.
Awesome. And sorry, real quick, I did want to remind everyone before we get started with our 23C features. This is a live webinar. Yes, you'll get access to the recording. Yes, you'll get access to the slide deck. And please take advantage of the Q&A field. Our speakers here, they should have the Q&A field pulled up. So if they have time, they can kind of pull some questions as we go. And if not throughout, then following today's webinar.
So let's talk a little bit about where 23C fits into the support timeline. Hopefully all of you now are on 19C. That's the current long-term support release for the Oracle database. That's supported all the way through to 2027 with a combination of free and extended support. So you can continue to run on 19C all the way through to 2025 under your current licensing, and then you can pay for extended support if you wish into 2027. The latest version of the Oracle database is actually 21C. That's our innovation release. That's where you get an opportunity to try out new capabilities, but you've got a much shorter Premier support window on that. So it's a 2-year Premier support. There is no extended support on that. Most people do tend to jump from one long-term support release to another. So you'll be moving from 19C onto 23C once that becomes available. So let's take a look at some of the things you can expect from 23C. Personally, my favorite new capability or feature that's coming with 23C is the JSON relational duality. And let me spend a couple of minutes just explaining what that's going to be and why I think it's so important. So when we're developing apps today, the way those apps represent and manipulate data is very different to the way we typically store it in a relational database, in columns and in tables and so on. And being able to convert those object languages to normalized relational data and back and forth does require a fair amount of skill and effort. And this mismatch in the way data is represented is often referred to as object relational mismatch. Now, this is not a new problem. Over the last several decades, we've seen lots of different ways to address that problem, whether it's to use object relational databases, to do object relational mapping tools, whatever you may have tried to do with it to solve that, none of them have fully addressed the problem. So in 23C, we've come up with a brand new way to solve that problem once and for all. And so rather than spending lots of time talking about what we implemented, I thought it'd be much easier if we look at an example. So imagine we've been asked to create a new app that is going to show our students their course schedules on their mobile devices. So we're in a university, all the different students have a lot of different courses in different locations that they need to get to. And so we're creating an app to solve that for them. Now, the data for that application is going to be stored in relational tables. And these are the 4 relational tables that data resides in: students, teachers, courses, and the course schedule. So we know exactly where everything's going to be. But a lot of developers are not interested in understanding how the data is laid out inside in the database. They would much prefer to be able to get all the information they need to build Jill's schedule in a single database operation. They just want to make a single REST API call to the Oracle database, get back all the info they need to display Jill's schedule. And of course, you can do that with the Oracle database today. It's an excellent document store. You can store each of the individual student schedules as a separate JSON document. You can access that using SQL or using one of our APIs, whether that's our own SODA API or a MongoDB compatible API that we've introduced. And because those JSON documents are stored inside the Oracle database, you're going to get all the advantages of a full ACID consistent transactions across those documents, all of that good stuff, industry leading security, high availability, etc. The downside to doing this and storing all of those student schedules as independent JSON documents, of course, is the fact that we're going to have a ton of duplicate data stored across all of those records. So for example, Jill and Jack both take Science 102. All of the details about that course need to be duplicated in both of those student records. And so if anything were to change with the time or the location or even the teacher of that course, we need to go in and update hundreds of records for all of the students that are taking that course. And doing that with data consistency can always be a challenge. So what we're doing instead in 23C is introducing JSON document relational duality, giving you all of the simplicity of the JSON approach, but with the power of a relational database. And so what we're doing is we're going to store the data as rows in tables to get all of the benefits of the relational model and to provide full SQL access if needed, but giving developers the ability to access that data using JSON documents so that we can deliver the simplicity they want. When they ask for Jill's schedule, they'll get back a JSON document giving them everything they need, where underneath the covers, the data is going to be stored relationally, and we'll automatically do the mapping for them, send them back the document as they expect it, And when they make changes to that document and push it back into the database, we'll automatically update the underlying objects to reflect those changes for them. That way, if the course schedule changes, we can have that reflected for all of the students instantly, fully ACID compliant. So we're going to make it extremely easy for them. As I said, the developers will make a simple get command to ask for that JSON document. They can go ahead and make any changes they want to that document in the application tier, push the document back to us, and we'll take care of keeping everything in sync for you. So rather than listen to me talk about REST, I'm going to hand you over to the Oracle expert and hand things over now to my colleague.
Thank you. You can go ahead and advance my little animation there, I think. One click only. Yes, thank you, Maria. Thanks to all the OOGs for having us today. Thanks to Viscosity for putting this event together. We love coming out and seeing developers and customers, and when we can't, these webinars fill or scratch that itch nicely. I help put together our development tools, so SQL Developer, SQL CL, Data Modeler, and our REST API technology, which is Oracle REST Data Services. So when Maria and I are taking classes and Maria finds out that I just copied her course schedule and she needs to go update hers to drop all those classes immediately, she can pick up her mobile phone, sign into the app, and say drop, 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 and add. And behind that mobile app, instead of a stateful connection to the database using a JDBC driver, or maybe our new thin Python driver, which actually kicks butt. What makes more sense for our mobile world, our internet world, is HTTP. So what we're going to give you on the database tool side is the ability to automatically publish REST APIs to take advantage of these duality views or these JSON documents in these tables. So I can do a patch and do a partial update on a record. I can do a put and create a new record. I can do a post and update slews of records or batch load thousands of records all at once. And of course, I can do my simple GET requests or my GETs with query parameters to get just subsets of things. So as app developers, you just have access to all of these APIs. And one set of these APIs would be the REST APIs. And you don't have to worry so much about the SQL or the PL SQL behind the endpoints. You simply go into one of our tools or you use our PL SQL API and you say, hey, for this JSON document, or for this view that we've created for these JSON documents, right click and say, hey, give me that automatic API, and ORDS publishes that stuff. So we've offered this feature for regular views, for regular tables, and even for stored procedures, including packages. And we're just going to enhance that further to include this new paradigm in our converged database. They warned us up front that we have a lot of speakers that like to talk a lot. And I said, hey, I've only got one slide. And I think I pushed my one slide. So I have many, many other favorite features. And thankfully, Rich and Troy and Charles are going to share those. So I cede my time. And thanks, everyone.
Hey, I love when people just give me time. Hopefully I won't go too long though. First of all, I want to mainly focus on the 23C tuning benefits. And the reason why I want to do that is I do a lot of machine learning now. And when I look at analytics, you're looking at 10,000, 100,000 rows in transactions that are happening. With machine learning, it becomes millions, hundreds of millions, even billions of transactions. So when I look at where we're going with machine learning, speed is really going to matter. And if we look on the next slide, one of the first ones is true cache. You have a lot of databases out there that somebody built in the last few years that are eventually consistent. Oracle took it one step better. Not only do they have ACID transactions, but now they have true cache at the app tier, at the edge cache, regional cache, multi-cloud cache, so you can get the latest consistent results that are out there. They've also added some sharding. Very good if you're in multiple countries and you want to have different roles and things like that. Sharding is very good. Inter-instance resource management, so you can set priorities. Priority transactions is probably my favorite feature. well, I have a lot of favorites, but where you can automatically abort transactions that they're not as important. How often do you run something overnight and you go, oh, the overnight failed. Oh, the overnight failed. Oh, the overnight failed because something was in the way. Now I can set priority transactions so that doesn't happen. On the next slide, we look at some things like SQL domains where I can, you have a different type of data type. Oh, I want to do zips. I want to do emails. Oracle's building that data type, which is amazing. Kafka, if you don't know Kafka, maybe many IoTs, things like Twitter, things that come flooding into the database, Oracle now handles using what's called, should be transaction event queues or TEQs. And you could read more about this even in 21C when they came out with that. I highly recommend that if you want amazing speed with Kafka. JavaScript allows developers create stored procedures using JavaScript in the database. Amazing. Another one that goes with the other one I talked about a minute ago is lock-free column value reservations, where I can specify the threshold at where the lock is going to be. And then on the next slide, dual instance rolling patching. What does this have to do with performance? Well, obviously you want to patch things quickly. So now I can stand up 2 instances of the database, same server, patch them in a rolling fashion. Something I really like about Oracle is they use machine learning in the database, 19C automatic indexes, things like that, where they're doing things that you used to do so that you can focus your time on things that are most important for your company. But real-time SQL plan management is another one of my favorites, where it automatically repairs that SQL. So instead of an Aura 600, now all of a sudden it automatically looks for another execution path that is going to allow you to see that. Also, on Rack is now going to be available with Kubernetes. That's pretty amazing if you use Kubernetes. Read only per PDB standbys. If you look at PDBs and how they've evolved here, in 12.2 they came out with a PDB refresh, PDB relocate, flashback PDB, gave you 3 PDBs for free, 3 PDBs for free in 19C so that you could go to multi-tenant. Now they're giving you where that read only per PDB standby, you can now actually open that and read it as well. And then on my last slide, as I said, you have these databases come and go, and some of them have been around maybe even 10 years. But when you look at Oracle, 40, 50 years, starting almost in every government out there, always available, recoverable. Security is absolutely amazing. With 23C, an in-database firewall blocks unauthorized SQL and PL SQL injection attacks for all SQL. 1024-byte PDBs, pretty amazing as well. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Troy to talk about more of these.
Thanks, Rich. I wanted to give you a look at some of my favorite SQL enhancements that 23 should have for us. And so if I can get it to advance the slide, there we go. I picked a half a dozen and then one. So let me quickly dive through these. If we look at Boolean data type, we've been needing this for a while. We've coded around it with a lot of if then else's and such. Boolean data type, you can use true, false, 1, 0, TF, several other iterations. If you think it's probably generally expected to be true or generally expected to be false, now it will do it. And so you can see I've selected where active. I don't have to say where active equal T or any other of the capabilities. So takes care of that. Next up, select without from. How many times do you say select sysdate from dual? Select hello world from dual. You no longer have to have that from dual in there. Developers will find that cleans up their code quite a bit and returns those values. Numeric strings, function calls, all of that are supported. If not exists or if exists for DDL statements, how many times do you go do an install and you have this whole list of error messages because it tried to create tables that already existed or tried to drop tables that didn't exist. So you can now include if exists or if not exists clauses on those, and your log file after that install will be a lot cleaner, or any of your other activities. One thing I would call out to note though is, note here, if I created this table if not exists, so the first one it created the table, if I immediately call the same thing again, it still says table created. It doesn't throw the error message because I said created if it doesn't exist. So that may be a little confusing to at first, but I think if you look at it later on, you'll see that it makes sense. By the same token, if I do drop the table if it exists, it actually dropped it. I do it again, it still will tell you the table was dropped, because at the end of the day, the table is gone now, even if it was dropped already. So a little bit cleaner on your log files, a little more sensible for your users. Another one of my favorite, this one is probably the top, column aliases for your group bys and having. Previously, you said something like, first, middle, last is name. You still had to use that in your group by the exact same text. If you changed case or misspelled it, it didn't work. Same for extract year, they can get pretty complicated. And do a having on that. Well, now you can use those aliases, name, group by name, age, group by age, and make your code a little more readable and a lot more robust without having to worry about mistyping something. Next up, multi-value insert statements. This can save a lot of energy as well. I give an example here where I put in 3 different records with one insert statement. Note it will tell me that 3 rows were inserted. And if I select from them, I see the 3 different rows. While this is great on an insert, also think about things like inline tables. You can do a values inline for a select star from an inline set of values as well and do the same thing. Next up, direct joins. This is another big time saver. How many times do you want to update something and you need values from a totally different set of tables? In this case, we've now added the from and where clauses to an update. So in this case, I'm saying add their raise amount from the reviews table to their salary in their employee table by joining reviews on the impl ID and only giving that raises to the top performers. So another very handy feature that we've added to the 23C. And finally, I said a half a dozen of my favorite ones and some. I'm still torn on this one. We've told you for years, least privileges, don't give them anything they don't absolutely need. But especially in, say, non-prod environments, it's very common to say, I have, in this case, HR is my application schema, and he's got a jillion tables in here. I've listed just a few. And every time I want to add somebody to have access to that schema, all of those tables, I had a bunch of grants to do. Now you can say grant select on any table on schema HR to your user, and they get not only all the tables that are there today, but they also get any tables that you might add to HR schema later. So that's a big time saver and sort of streamlines what those security tables are going to look like. So one more, I'll put it in my list of favorites, but I'm still torn on whether or not it's a great idea. So use with caution. And with that, I will turn it back over to Charles, I believe. If Charles gets off of mute, that is.
All right, thank you. As a beta partner, I had a really hard time to figure out what I am allowed to talk about and what I'm not allowed to talk about. I made the mistake of talking to too many product managers, and over time, it's not about what I can talk about. It's more, we can only talk about what other Oracle people have talked about. And so I locked down scope as much as I can. I did want to start with this slide because this is a core component of a lot of the high availability features that's in pluggable databases. And as everybody knows, in 23C, we must be pluggable database. And it defines how we do active data guard as well as, the refreshable pluggable databases implementations. And so pluggable databases was introduced in 12.1. The refreshable pluggable database was introduced in 12.2. And so a refreshable pluggable database is a read-only pluggable database, very much like your standard read-only standby database. When it is in the pluggable read-only state, archive logs are not applied. More so, by default, archive logs are not shipped to the refreshable pluggable site. And so in 18C, Oracle introduced the concept of a redo repository. It does incur the active data guard license, but now while you are in refreshable pluggable mode or read-only mode, archive logs are shipped to the redo repository. And so when a refreshable PDB has to refresh to get current, it has to shut down, be in mount mode, and apply archive logs. Without this feature, the PDB has to go query across the network and pull all the archive logs. But with this feature now, the redos or archive logs will be available locally on the machine, thus reducing significantly the amount of time for refresh. Can you go to the next slide, Monica? All right, so from a 23C perspective, we have quite a bit of high availability features, but a lot of them I want to focus in the pluggable database side, which is also data guard. And the first one I want to start with is the reconnect refreshable PDBs. And so a refreshable PDB cannot be open for read-write mode. And if it is ever open for read-write mode, it is not allowed to be a refreshable PDB. And so in 23C, Oracle gives us the same kind of functionality that's available in a snapshot standby. So a refreshable PDB will disconnect from the refreshable PDB process, and we can open that PDB in read-write mode. And from that perspective, we can do our testing, we can do any kind of data manipulation that we need to. And just like a snapshot standby, we can revert it back to a refreshable PDB. And so this is a 23C new feature. In the cloud, in the autonomous world, we have the concept of per PDB time zone, but that's going to be available now to on-premise customers. So the local time zone was available in an earlier feature at the PDB level, but now the sysdate queries prior to was set at the CDB level. Now we can set that now that's going to be available at the PDB level. So what that basically means is that for more of the legacy applications that couldn't do manipulation for like current date, current time and stuff like that. So this is to support those kind of applications. Also in 23C, we're going to have this concept of a hybrid read-only PDB. So what that basically means is that a PDB by default will have a common user, and a common user will be allowed to do maintenance operations. And so for example, patching. And so a read-only database can't be patched, but now with the hybrid read-only mode, all application users will be set as a read-only mode, but the common user can do maintenance operations. At the same time, we can set hybrid mode at the session level as well. And this is for customers who want more granularity. So a local PDB administrator can have maintenance capabilities, and the local PDB administrator will assign all the application users to have read-only access. In 21C, Oracle added the per PDB data guard capabilities. And this is really really cool concept. Think about two CDBs. CDB1 with PDB1 will be the primary database, ship and redo logs to CDB2, and we'll have PDB1, which will be the standby. Now, the same CDB2 will have a primary database, and it will ship archive logs to CDB1. And so now CDB1 for PDB2 will be the standby. And so now we have, from a primary perspective, both CDB1 and CDB2 will be primary databases. And what they did on 23C is now extending that capability, and now we can have read-only per PDB standbys. Rich mentioned the Oracle RAC and Kubernetes and Podman. So Podman was added because Docker is now introducing license fees for their enterprise customers. And so from a Podman perspective, the feature functionality is almost identical. And so he also talked about rolling patching. And so now the at a rack level and also at a single instance level, we can stand up a instance level of the database, and will require more memory. But now, from that perspective, we can do rolling patching or near zero time downtime patching. The last thing I want to talk about is the MRP, the monthly recommended patches. From a RU perspective, they will continue every quarter, but the release update, the RURs are going to go away, and it'll be replaced by the monthly recommended patches. And for every RU, Oracle will provide 6 MRPs. And this is only going to be available on Linux at first, but the hopes are that eventually be ported to other platforms. Next slide, Monica. All right, so how do we get to 23C? And so one of the announcements that was made is that to get to 23C, you must first upgrade to either 19C or 21C, which is depicted on the next slide. So we actually had some customers who came to us and said, you know what, I'm gonna skip 19C and I'm gonna go straight to 23C, which is the next long-term release of the database. Well, from an upgrade perspective, you must be on either 19C or 21C to upgrade to 23C. And to upgrade to 19C, you must be on 11.204 of the database or 12.102 of the 12CR1 release, or 12.2.1 or 18.1 to be able to jump to 19C. And so we generally recommend to all of our customers, if you are on a prior release of 19C, upgrade to 19C first, and then jump on to 23C. We, during COVID, did hundreds and hundreds of database, I would even say thousands of database upgrades during COVID, because we did in a single year over 100 Exadata upgrades. And some of the lessons learned that we had from a 12.102 perspective, not only do you have to be on 12.102, but you have to be on a particular PSU or higher to upgrade to 19C. And so we went through the exercise of applying the PSUs first and then upgrading to 19C. And the thing was that not that the actual PSU failed often, but when it did, especially for good infrastructure, we had to do, we had to actually pull commands from my notes from like 10 years ago, because everything is now auto patch. And so those are the key things. All right, let's see if we have any questions so far.
So I'll ask a question. I see we had a poll here on what release of 19, or what release are you on? It looks like most of the audience is on 19C. So that's a good sign. If you had asked that, at 12C days, how many were on the current version, that would have been a lot different skew. So So that's good news. The other 2% does kind of scare me. But we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're on 11.2, right? No 7.3.4 or anything, right? But the better question is, with a little bit of time, we ran through the favorite features and had to cut down the list pretty tightly. What other favorite features didn't make our slide deck that my fellow panelists feel are really game changers for the next generation of database? Go for it, Rich. I know you have something to say. No? Maria?
I think folks are getting caught up answering the questions that are coming in on Q&A. I know I certainly was distracted by that.
Yeah.
One of the areas we didn't get a chance to cover is the new enhancements for graph inside in 23C. So if you're not familiar with it, graph is a phenomenal way to be able to get a different view of your data and to be able to discover patterns within that data that may not be obvious when you're kind of doing standard SQL queries against a data set. And so for me, the enhancements we put in for operational property graphs is great, because I can actually do those kind of graph analytic queries against transactional data in the base tables. That's definitely something to look out for. There's been great enhancements in the security space. So things like schema level privileges, read-only users, interaction with the Azure Active Directory, things like that. There's lots of security enhancements too that I love. As always, there's a bunch of new stuff in the optimizer space, especially for autonomous database. So we've got auto indexing, auto partitioning now, auto materialized views. There's a huge push in that general direction as well. But I think before I, let all the cats out of the bag, let me offer it up to somebody else who may have some they'd like to talk about.
Yeah,
I do like. Okay.
I was just going to add that there's going to be something for you specifically. There are over 200 features in 21C. Some of them are absolutely amazing, and over 300 features in 23C. So I'll leave it at that and pass it to Charles.
I do like some of the security features. Not that anybody would do a 1024 byte password, but I do like the SQL firewall that was added. Meaning, we can go in and get a capture of every SQL ID that's been run on the database and whitelist all the SQL statements, and only these SQL statements are ever allowed to run. And so that kind of interested to see how that actually plays out from a deployment perspective and what kind of licenses that's going to be required. But that was really interesting. And then from a doing a lot of data warehousing, a lot of data analytics lately, the 4,096 columns on a given table was really interesting too, to see how that's going to play out in terms of performance.
Yeah, Charles, that SQL firewall did catch my attention as well. Obviously, I'm always focused on security. It's sort of the other half of SQL plan management, right? So now not only can you control the plans, but you can actually control what SQL IDs get to run in your environment. So that'll be really, really helpful. Jeff, what about any great new things on our command line tools? SQL CL latest updates, SQL Dev. I saw a lot of questions over the past few weeks about, is SQL Dev continuing on in 23C? I sort of chuckled. So what do you think?
I think lots of good things. Yeah, so that's what I'm here for. The big news drops. So everything you know about SQL Developer is about to change. The SQL Developer that you're using today, getting ready to put into maintenance mode. It's only going to get bug fixes, and we're going to be releasing a brand new SQL Developer that's based on Visual Studio Code.
Wow.
So that dark mode you've been asking about, Troy, for 16 years, you finally get it. That's a really deep conversation we could get into. Like, so I'm not taking anything away. The old SQL Developer Classic, SQL Developer, whatever you want to call it. It'll be here for a few years. We'll be enhancing it. No, sorry. We'll be providing bug fixes, security fixes to it for the next several years to come as we migrate features over to the new platform. If we want to talk about 23C specific stuff, if we have any developers on the call that like using JavaScript, the multilingual engine, MLE sometimes it's called, came out in 21C, but it comes out for real in 23C. So you can actually create stored procedures and entire modules and libraries of JavaScript code that can be executed via stored procedures, called by PL SQL stored procedures, called directly from SQL statements. And of course, being the tools people, we need to give you the IDEs so you can do JavaScript development alongside your PL SQL and your SQL development. So that's keeping us busy for a while. The command line stuff continues to be enhanced. If you haven't heard, there's a new game in town. It's not just SQL Plus anymore. We built this thing called SQL CL. It's so much more powerful and user friendly at the command line than SQL Plus is.
I find it very intuitive, right? It does what you would have wanted it to have done, right? When I select star from a table, it gives it to you in a nice readable fashion, right?
Crazy stuff like, readable query results.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, we realize, Maria and I, we love talking about 23C. We know you're not going to be there for a while. And I think it was Rich that mentioned earlier, just go look at all the new features in 21C, but not even 21C. Just look at all the new features in 19C. For the 90% of people that said they're on 19C, I bet you're not using half of the new stuff in 19C. So go look for the webinars that Viscosity hosted 3 years ago, or other user groups hosted 3 years ago, where we did the same thing and talked about new features in 19, and make sure you're not missing anything.
Yeah, go back, read that new features section that was in the 19 database guide that you didn't really have time for when you were upgrading to 19, because you were really more worried about making it work on your previous app releases and getting that up to the new data tier, and didn't really have time to play with those other features. Well, now's a good time to go back and review those, because they've stood this test of time at this point and are well shaken down. You don't have to worry about I don't look at new features because they're always buggy. We've done really, really well here on the last couple of releases on that line. So they should be.
I'm glad you said that, Troy. I'm gonna take a snapshot of that and frame it and send it to everyone at headquarters. Troy said
I've been saying that on my last several events. I really think we've gotten a heck of a lot better now. I don't know if that's attributable to the regression testing that you get with Oracle Cloud and having thousands of Exadatas out there running all the same code. That's
well, it doesn't hurt that we have to run our own stuff now.
Yes, indeed.
We're one of our own biggest customers, so yeah, it forces us to drink the Kool-Aid and eat the dog. All of the metaphors. Yes, we're in all of that now. So
drink our own champagne. That's what
drink our own champagne. Yes.
Right. I was going to say also the 23C new features. I did a talk on 19C, 23C for Viscosity. You can get that recording on the Viscosity side. And I go back to 12 and say, whatever you do, make sure you have these features. These features of 18C were amazing. These features need to be in there for 19C. Look ahead to these in 23C. I thought Maria's answer, a new feature we didn't cover until she gave some additional ones, machine learning for materialized views. I mean, if you've ever run into JI contention, which is a very rare materialized view one, it is great to see Oracle putting more and more machine learning into the database, like putting in things like automatic indexing. They put some new algorithms, and one thing I think is very important for machine learning is probably the number one question, that CEOs ask about your machine learning algorithms is, can I trace what happened? Can I trace what this algorithm did so that there's no bias. Oracle actually has a way to do that in 23C. I saw that in Philippe Leon's talk and Mark Hornick. So definitely take a look at those talks as well on 23C and some new algorithms as well.
Excellent. Excellent.
I see a lot of great questions that are still coming in, and Maria and Jeff, y'all are machines. Oh my gosh, I am so amazed at how many answers you guys have put out there for everyone. If you've not taken advantage of the Q&A, please do. This is like high profile office hours right here. So thank you guys. But also, panelists, if there are any questions you've seen in here that you think need to be addressed, our audience cannot see these questions coming through. So if you'd like to discuss any of those, please do.
Yeah.
I think the rest of us non-Oracle people are scared to answer any questions on 23C.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah.
We're in the beta program, so we got to be careful what we say.
Chat GPT.
Somebody,
I like it.
You know, we're
Yeah.
talking about, you know, how the chat GPT stuff features into everything, because it seems like overnight it's like this seminal moment where things do actually change.
Amazing.
But yeah, you know, so we're always looking at that kind of stuff. And that's why we have innovation releases, you know, like 21C, you know, and we have an innovation release for 23C. You'll find
somebody asked what the most important security feature is. The one I put up there, in database SQL firewall blocking unauthorized SQL and PL SQL injection attacks. To me, this is by far the greatest thing. And that I saw that in an Andy Mendelson talk, and he had a summary slides of 23C. There was only maybe 8 things on the slide, and it was one of them, which tells me it's probably going to be there
early. Yeah.
So, although there is a safe harbor statement.
I did put a link to Andy's talk into the into the answer to Roy on that one. So if folks want to find it, the link is there.
That is great.
Yeah,
I'll be
someone asked
curious
about
how that works on upgrades, but as I do new database releases or new application releases, that should be an interesting exercise. But looking forward to playing with it.
Yeah, someone asked about 23C standard edition HA solution. It doesn't change at all because RAC is no longer supported for standard edition as of 19C. And so we actually have some customers who are on RAC on standard edition that are staying in 18C.
You shouldn't be on 18C for any reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agree.
We agree too.
But we still have customers that come to me bragging about running production on 8i. So, you know, don't tell someone they can't do it.
And the MRPs are cumulative. So if you're applying MRP monthly recommended patch number 5, it's going to have all the previous 4.
And I would check the MOS note on that is 555.1. 555.1. I remember when Andy talked about those on, it was a European talk, he announced it. And I thought, ooh, that looks pretty cool, MRPs.
Interestingly enough, 555 is a timer IC chip.
There you go.
This is better than your Reddit AMA.
Yeah.
Folks are certainly being nicer. That's for sure.
Nicer
Kinder. Yeah.
Yeah, I think 23C, I really have to add in with machine learning and everything in robotics is all about machine learning because you have to do so much. And there's so many things you have to do with a robot, whether it be one that walks around or whether it be Siri or Alexa or so on. But everything about Oracle since the beginning of the Oracle database has been about speed and security. With machine learning, you absolutely are going to need that speed. And I think Exadata certainly helps with things like in memory as well. But if you've not tried 16 gig at no charge, they backported that from 21C to 19.8. Make sure you try it. It is amazing. I mean, and the other things you could do, I don't know if people know this yet, but it came out in 21C is where you could read the buffer cache and the in-memory cache simultaneously. So that's also another great thing that will be there in 23C so that I can look at both of those, and it auto populates and things like that. But there's more on that if you read about it. That's in the talk that I did at Viscosity as well.
Reading through some great questions over here about the upgrades and such. What's it going to do when I'm using XML and upgrading on large databases and such? I'm thinking we need to reach out to our friend Mr. Dietrich to talk about some of those, right?
Jeff, there's one there for you if you want to tackle
I'm
it.
typing
About
it
what's
now.
the
I just saw it. I didn't realize I could scroll down.
And while y'all continue going through those questions, I did realize I missed one very important user group near and dear to my heart, New York Oracle Users Group. They're also a sponsor, and I say near and dear to my heart because I host 1 to 2 webinars with them a month. So if you're not familiar with our webinars, definitely follow nyoug.org. They're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all of the above, and they put out so many webinars monthly with and without Viscosity. So I'm so sorry about that, New York Oracle Users Group. Thank you so much to all the user groups for helping us out and promoting today's webinar. Our panelists, all of you guys are amazing. I can't even tell you how special this is to me to even get this hour from you guys. So I appreciate that. And I really do hope you guys come back and speak for us or any of these user groups. Are any of you actually presenting at the RMUG or the UTUG training days?
You'll definitely see myself and several other product managers at RMUG this year. So yeah, watch out for that. Once the agenda is published, you'll see a fair amount of us.
I'm at both. I'm at both as well.
Perfect.
And I am too. So I have to figure out what I'm speaking on though. But I am both.
You mean you need to put your slides together, huh?
He'll have it done the night before.
That's what the plane ride's for. You know?
More like the hour before.
Someone did ask about, is there an outline or for 19C, 21C, 23C? One of the things that we are doing at Viscosity is as soon as 23C goes GA, our book on 23C will come out right afterwards. And so we are writing with all the aces and friends, and even we even have an Oracle product manager in it as well. And so we're doing a 23C new features book, which will include 19C as well. And
check out Sean Scott's #1 database Oracle database book right now. Is Sean Scott's database on is on Docker. So
it's it's a #1 book on Amazon.
Yeah.
It even hit #1 before we started buying 50 copies at a time.
Yeah. I was going to say the question on the SQL firewall. This is Andy's exact answer. Embedded inside the database, SQL Firewall provides real-time protection against common database attacks by monitoring and blocking unauthorized SQL and SQL injection attacks, no matter the SQL execution path. So that's his exact words. That's as much as I can say. But that was exactly from his talk. I made sure I took a picture.
All right. Well, as we close out this webinar, I'd actually like to ask all of you panelists a quick question about user groups, since this is kind of a special users group sponsored webinar. What are your favorite things about user group conferences or user group communities in general? I would really like to encourage everyone here to get involved in their local user group or a national user group. So a little information from you guys, I think, would be very inspiring.
That sounds great. I was going to add one quick thing I think is very important. Somebody said, is the DBA going to be replaced by ChatGPT? I asked ChatGPT a variety of Oracle questions. Some of the harder questions out of my book, it could answer 0 of them. So just to let you know, I think it's going to be a while.
So
You're training it, Rich. You're training it to answer your question.
I didn't tell him what the answer was.
Okay.
It may still be looking, but it hasn't answered it yet.
I love our user groups because it's true community. Like I've seen people come together to support other members personally with life tragedies and stuff happening. And then of course, just the events themselves, you know, it's like a family reunion. Seeing old friends and meeting new people. You know, it's the worst thing about, well, apart from losing actual friends, you know, the worst part about the last 2-3 years, we haven't been able to come out in the way we wanted to. So it's nice this year we'll be able to do more of that. So thanks user groups for sticking it out the last couple of years. And if you haven't been to user group event, you know, this is a great time to ask your manager what their travel and training budget is and to go spend that money. Sometimes it's just sitting there.
Yeah, that actually is one of the things I really like about the users groups, the fact that in many geos they're local, so you can get out when you don't have a travel budget or it's within striking distance for a minor car trip, you know, road trip. For those organizations who don't have big travel budgets to fly you out to Vegas or wherever it happens to be, this gives the opportunity for a lot more folks to get the advantages of some of the conferences. And usually you'll have your users group leaders going to the major conferences and bringing that content back to the local regions. And so that to me is some of the best part about the users groups themselves. Plus hearing what the actual end users are actually doing with some of these really cool features that, you know, sound great, work great, those sorts of things. How are we really using them?
Somebody once recommended books. I was going to say you could go to the ACE page and books that are by these ACEs. These guys work 24/7 and then they still present at these user groups. I mean, they really have some great character attributes, but look for an ACE that is in the area that you want to know about and then see if they have a book. A lot of them have them.
I would add one more, my favorite book, and it's getting kind of old now, but it still was written with, the content is still very appropriate, is Tales from the Oak Table. Each chapter is written by a different, you know, international name that you would have recognized, with a precursor and post from Mons Norgard. So really great book. It's really steps out of the technology to more about ways of thinking about problems and how to solve different classes of problems, not so specific about use this feature from this version type of thing. So I like that one. It transcends time.
Complete reference is good to find specific stuff too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you know, now you guys mention it, you know, I'm gonna probably shoot for an Oracle ACE hour at Utah Oracle User Group. I think it's a
That's a
great
good
way to
idea.
get people to come. I mean, because you have a lot of questions, but you know, the 5-minute or 10-minute in between is not enough. And so people who really need some consultative advice can really, you know, meet the ACEs and get some really good feedback.
Hey, a great question that came is there a release date set for 23C? I haven't heard anything yet. I don't know if anyone else has.
Yeah.
But the beta is out and you can become a beta tester. So you just look it up online and you can find out how to become a beta tester. So you want to access it, you can access it now, maybe.
Yeah, I think they announced the second beta, and in terms of when, it's still hush hush. We can just speculate. We can speculate that, you know, it'll be Q2 sometime, but it's pure speculation.
No, I agree. I wasn't laughing at that. I was laughing at one of the responses. Rich needs to get an alt man to talk for you and trade Oracle Chat GPT. I don't think so. I actually saw Pepper the robot and I said, hey, do you know how to tune the database? And she's like, I don't understand the question. I said, keep it that way. And I said, don't read my book either.
All right, guys. Do you have anything else?
No, I was just gonna you know, joke around in terms of ChatGPT. I know guys who are writing blog pages, technical blog pages with ChatGPT, and I mean, as speakers, we can definitely leverage ChatGPT to fine tune our abstracts, and they even have a ChatGPT checker there's these websites that you can just copy and paste. They'll tell you this is like 90%, 99% generated by ChatGPT. So there are other websites that will actually take the ChatGPT and translate it so that those other websites can't detect this ChatGPT stuff.
It's an arms race as usual, right?
Charles, you're gonna find another way to wait later to do your talking. I use ChatGPT to help me. And thank you, Monica, for keeping us all in line. She does several pre meetings to make sure we're in line and we leave time for the questions.
Just rounding the troops, gathering the cats, herding the cats. All of you are so busy. I know Jeff and Maria had to drop off, but I'm just glad you guys let me bother you. This is, I think, our maybe fourth panel like this. Those of you who are just joining us for the first time, keep up, because we do these maybe each database release, and we've done some even for infrastructure, I think engineered system releases. So I love it. This is probably my favorite format of webinars that we do at Viscosity. It's just so fun to see you guys chat. And if you love hearing your favorite technologists chat like this is another reason to go to a user group conference or tech day, because you've got them all right there. They're typically all mingling. You can bug them after their sessions, see them at the happy hours. So it's just a great way to get that face-to-face time and hear these types of discussions. So I love it. I know we're over the hour now. There's still a lot of you that are still signed on with us, and I love that. Let me know if you are interested in other types of topics in this type of format. I would love to get other sessions like this going. I'll follow up with everybody after this once everything's uploaded online. Your local user group or user group closest to, at least, will also have these things posted on their websites. So with that, thank you guys, panelists and attendees, everyone, for joining us today. This was a great, fun-filled, packed hour. I was afraid we weren't going to have enough time, and we did great. So
thanks, everyone.
thank you. Thank you so much. I
great
hope
day.
everyone has a great day. Take care.
Bye, everyone.